Welcome to the Environmental Leadership Chronicles, a podcast brought to you by the California Association of Environmental Professionals. In this episode, we're joined by Florentina Craciun. She's an urban planner with over 16 years of experience in environmental compliance. As a senior planner at LSA, she guides agencies and private clients through CEQA for projects like housing and commercial developments, historic building adaptive reuse, and public infrastructure. Florentina earned her master's in urban planning from UCLA with an emphasis on environmental planning. And since then, she's worked to bridge graduate school ideals with real-world practice, making environmental planning more accessible through teaching CEQA courses, mentorship, and championing for streamlined processes. For over a decade, Florentina served on the APA Northern Section Board with roles from membership director to awards co-director. She has done this while pursuing her vision of transforming environmental planning from a can't-do barrier into a can-do tool for building more just communities. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoy. Hi, I'm Jessa, and today we are joined by Florentina Craciun, who is a senior planner with LSA, and she is also known as the CEQA Queen. So welcome to the podcast, Florentina. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jessa. I am super excited and very honored to be here with you. And, just really awesome. I'm just excited to dive in. Let's do it.
Yay, as am I. So our first question is always, how are you connected to AEP?
Well, in many ways, big and small, AEP has really been part of my journey in environmental planning for about 12 years. I love collaborating with folks on the AEP board. I was on the APA board myself, so there was a lot of cross collaboration and, doing holiday parties together, learning from AEP folks, doing awards with AEP, being a juror for that. So really, in my story is super intertwined with AEP and all the wealth of knowledge and connection, most importantly, that it brings into the profession. So, yeah.
Yes. I love the connection aspect. And I think, it's so important for community. And I love the AEP and APA collaboration over the years and finding ways to bring the communities together because there is a lot of overlap. So
absolutely. Yeah.
And then with AEP, we are working on an elements campaign. And so with our People and Culture Committee, Chief, who's leading the People and Culture Committee for AEP, is learning about professionals and thinking in the context of elements with air, earth, water, time, space, and connection. We want to know, which do you feel your work interfaces with the most right now?
So basically what I just heard is a 2026 jazzed up Captain Planet because we added connection to that. And funny enough, Captain Planet is a big part of why I'm an environmental planner. So I think for me, actually, the biggest thing is I would say connection. That is something that I've always really thrived. And I do see myself as a connector of people, connector of ideas. And also personally, when I played Captain Planet with my friends on the playground, I was always heart. So the connection and the heart piece just really go very well together. And if your people committee needs any t-shirts done, I am happy to help with the Captain Planet cameo.
I love that. I love it.
She can be Captainess Planet.
Yes. I'll make sure they get that offer and go connect.
Yes, so, connect.
I'm really excited to speak with you, not just because you're a lovely person, but you have such an interesting story. Mm-hmm. And so you grew up in Romania went to high school there and moved to California and studied history. Mm-hmm. Yes. And now you're a planner. So can you tell us a little bit more about your journey and, starting in your post high school education in California and history and all the things? I'm so interested in this.
So I was just a regular 17-year-old in California. In Romania, living my best post-communism Eastern European life, watching Sailor Moon and Captain Planet and Beverly Hills 90210. And literally, when we moved to California when I was 17 in 1999, please, nobody do the math. I will be very, very disappointed in you. But we moved here because we got the opportunity through the green card lottery system. And my dad one day said, "Hey, we won the green card lottery. We're moving to the United States." And I said, "Let me pack my bags." I've always been one for adventure and change and seeing and learning from new people and places. So when I moved here, I kind of expected everything to be like Merlot's place. And let me just tell you, it did not disappoint. But in terms of how that story connects with urban planning, I think for me, the biggest shock was going from a town where I could walk from one end to the other of about 100,000 people to living in Los Angeles and in LA County, which basically is the population of Romania. LA County has about 12 million people. The whole population of Romania is 20 million people. So for me, that culture shock of not having my mobility, like having my mobility being severely impacted, it really impacted my sense of self and my independent self. And it also impacted the way I saw myself growing, right? I went from a place where I had a lot of liberty and I could get places with the bus or by foot or with a bike to a place where unless you had a driver's license, your opportunities were very limited. So I really started thinking a lot about how the urban fabric that we live in really influences how we thrive. And when I was exploring careers past history, actually, which that is my first and deepest love, because I really do believe that history repeats itself. I actually didn't even know what urban planning was until I was about 22. I didn't realize that people plan the cities. I never thought about how this stuff comes together. I just was like, oh, I'm sure a fairy has a wand somewhere and bam, there's a residential building. Yeah. So at 22 or 23, I joined the UCLA Extension public policy program. And that's where I learned about urban planning. And I felt so lucky that the universe sent me in that direction, because literally I went from feeling kind of powerless to influence my environment to realizing that I can myself be the one who makes environments, who creates environments. So ever since then, really my goal has been to help create environments that empower people and help people thrive. And obviously, as we know, right, there's a lot of research out there that shows that there's a deep connection in between life expectancy, education to the zip code, right? The zip code you live in really impacts where you go and how you do it. So my mission really as a planner is to change that and make sure that zip codes are just a number we put on our letters and not a number that dictates how well we're going to age or, the opportunities we have in school or in our personal lives.
Oh, I love that. There's so much there. I think one thing I wanted to touch on was, because this is very relatable to my perspective as well, is the fairy with the magic wand. That's just like, boom, there's a city. And yes. I think, I know this is very important to you, is mentorship and leadership. And so there are people who are just kind of going through the path or have big life changes, moving to a new country and new culture. And when you are able to weave in this mentorship and leadership and reach people at an earlier age and educate them and inform them about the opportunities that exist in the world and the changes you can make, is such an important part of the work that you do. And I think, being able to experience that firsthand, to be like, yes. Oh yeah, I guess there is someone who does this, and there is an organization around this that you can be a part of. And so I think that was a really interesting aha moment, I guess, to
It
hear about.
was, yeah, and frankly, it was very transformative for me. When you move here, luckily for me, I already spoke English just because in Romania they really emphasize learning foreign languages as a young child. So I definitely had that going for me. But we moved here with no knowledge of how the system works, whether or not I could go to college, right? In Romania, I was part of an upper middle class family that really emphasized education. And I think that that's really kind of what drove me to continue persevering in the United States. But I actually think that a lot of it, and this kind of just goes back a little bit to my leadership philosophy, I encountered a lot of people who had a lot of kindness and who saw the world as a joyful place where there's space for everybody. So they didn't look at me as an outsider coming in, trying to impose my ideas or style. They looked at me as a driven person that has something beautiful to add to their own perspective, to their own communities, to their own world. And that really is what helped me succeed in the United States of America. And I think that that's why kindness and joy and empathy are just such central themes to my professional life, and things that I really try to practice in my everyday interactions with people, whether it's clients or junior staff or even supervisors. I think that meeting those people that allow you to flourish is just so important, even if the places maybe aren't made for that, you know.
Yeah, I think that really comes through with everything you're saying and the way you present yourself and the way you speak. And, when you were saying like the zip code idea, it's just a number. And
Yeah.
how do we get that and being part of the solution in creating these opportunities for individuals and communities to thrive and to not have that be associated with reduced life expectancy or
Yes.
reduced income or whatever the statistics may be, and to reach more people and give them tools and resources to thrive, I think is so lovely and such a lovely way to think about it.
I think a lot of the times what I think about is actually empowerment. I think that one of the things that we need to say more to everybody is you matter and your perspective matters. But also scale, right? I think a lot of the times we get really overwhelmed when we think about changing systems or changing the world, right? And when we are in college and we're young, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to change how environmental planning is done or blah, blah, blah. But one of the things that I've learned throughout my career, the past 20 some years, is that community, you can define it for yourself. And if you choose to define it for yourself, then it becomes an even more powerful tool for you to be able to impact the world. So I definitely throughout my career had a few moments where I asked myself, am I making a big enough impact? And I had to kind of remember, like, I'm not an Obama, I'm not a Clinton, I'm not even a Bush, not even at the Super Bowl. I wasn't selected to be a Bush. I was too short. Yet. I like that. But I am a Florentina and I have my community of people and my community of friends. And if I bring that kindness and that joy and that can-do attitude into that in and of itself can create longer lasting change. So
Yes,
calibrating kind of your expectations, but also calibrating your definitions of what change means, what community means, and then applying it to your everyday practice. I really think that is a good recipe for staying authentically yourself in your everyday job and not feeling like you have divorced personalities depending on where you are. Right? We wear multiple hats, but it's all on the same head.
Yes, I think it's such a great perspective for leaders, emerging professionals, and I think there has been a history of this, and I think this is changing where it is like you have your work self and your non-work self, and it's like it's all intertwined, and so it's creating spaces for people. So like when you have this approach to leadership and creating spaces where people feel comfortable being their authentic selves, we can all feel better about the work we're doing and probably be higher performers and be more successful. And not that that's the only goal, but it feels good. And when you're able to do that, and you touched on this, but I just want to highlight this, is that, you've spoken about wanting environmental planning to be a can-do tool rather than a can't-do barrier.
Yes.
And I think that's such a poignant way to state that. And, in your experience as a CEQA queen, where do you see it getting stuck in maybe that can't-do mode?
I feel like everything else, it's when we get too pedantic, when we get too stuck into our terminology, when we get too stuck into, but this is how we do it. I think that the biggest barrier to CEQA is accessibility. So I really take my job as a CEQA translator very seriously. I really do believe that my job is to make CEQA accessible to the common folk, and I mean that with a lot of respect. And not to folks who understand, what GHG emissions are, or what NOx and VOx and whatever other ox is in the study, right? Is taking that and demystifying it and breaking down that knowledge. So for me, when I go into community meetings or when I go into client meetings, I really take my job as translator very seriously, because I want folks to understand that the goal isn't to just say things to sound smart, is to say things because they have meaning. And I think that that's where we get stuck a lot, especially I feel like nowadays, where to a certain extent, I feel like our profession is starting to churn out documents more and more for the lawyers in our lives, as opposed to the community that we have to serve. And I think that that's kind of a tricky balance, and that's kind of a tricky place to be, right? Because to a certain extent, we are putting out research to fulfill regulatory needs. But let's never forget that our first job is to inform the public and decision makers. So I think that we as professionals have to strive to really get more comfortable in speaking CEQA when is appropriate, like at AEP conferences where I speak a lot of CEQA and I love it so much. But then translating CEQA for community people, for community groups, for your supervisors, for your planning commission, for your city council, and allowing the conversation to be more authentic. There's no judgment for asking questions. There's no judgment for saying, hey, I still don't get it. But there's also no shame in saying, I don't get it, but you know what? I trust that the GHG person got it right. I trust that the noise metrics are correct. So yeah, building the trust through translation and accessibility. That's really where I think that a CEQA can become more of a can-do tool, as opposed to a can't, because it's too much and it's too dense and it's too hard.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You have so many interesting points that you've made. And I think about this. I'm not a CEQA professional. My background's in business, though I'm in the, see? Oh,
yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, I was taking it well. And when I know the very surface level of CEQA, I know it exists. I know some very generalities of it. And when I'm out speaking with people who are not environmental professionals, who live in California and are speaking about development or planning or environmental issues, and I say something about CEQA or the CEQA requirements, and they're like, what is that? I'm like, oh, well, just so you know, this state act exists, and basically most development falls within the CEQA regulations. And so I think that's such an important point you made about speaking to the community that is impacted by CEQA, and in terms that are digestible and relevant to the communities that they live in. Because in this industry, right? It's CEQA. It's just like a table or a desk or a computer. It's like, such a common, it's so common in our vocabulary that you forget that sometimes you have to speak in a new language. And I think the scientific communication comes in as such a valuable and critical skill to be able to connect with the members of the community that are going through these planning issues.
And just that this is why I don't think of streamlining as a way of doing less CEQA. I think of streamlining as a way of getting better projects, right? Mm-hmm. So when I work on a project and I see that a noise study or something comes up and there's going to be impacts, I want to talk to the applicant and I want to let them know, and I want to say, hey, move your HVAC. Hey, include this bioswale. Hey, there's a daycare right there, move this use around the site. So for me, CEQA and the studies that we make is a force of good because we are working on getting better projects out there from the beginning and not having to pull teeth, right, to do that. Mm-hmm. So that's why I always think of, and I am very passionate about streamlining. And that because that to me means that we're getting better projects out there and more environmentally friendly development.
Yes. And I'd love to hear about some of your project work, actually. So can you maybe give us an example or examples of your work in adaptive reuse of historic buildings and or public works projects? But I'm very interested in the historic buildings because of your history background too.
Yes. So I love working on historic adaptation. I deeply believe that it's important for us to preserve our heritage, but not preserve it blindly. I do believe that it's important to preserve history, but also let it adapt and grow with the needs of the community. Because if we're always just going to say, well, this is historic, we can't change it, then we're actually limiting ourselves and limiting the possibilities of what that old thing can be new, right? I mean, we take care of our bodies and trying to slow down aging. Why can't we do that to our infrastructure, to our buildings, to our sidewalks, etc.? So one of the cool projects that comes to mind that I had a really good time working on was when I was at the city of San Francisco. I worked on was 729 Bush Street, and it was the last gay porn theater that was still existing. And it was an adaptive reuse, taking it from that theater use to a medical office and residential. And I got to work really closely with the City of San Francisco historic preservationists, which are just A++ professionals and people, and the applicant. And it was so cool that we got to explore that history that I didn't know anything about, and then figure out how to be able to honor it in a respectful way that still allows for these medical office uses to be developed while still understanding that there was a lot of very important history that we need to acknowledge and preserve. So it's really cool to look at plans and say, oh, hey, you need to preserve the staircase. How do we incorporate it into the thing? You need to, like, for example, they needed to preserve the awning and the letters. And how do we do that? But then the next step is, if you can't preserve it on site, let's find those community folks who are very interested in this topic or what this particular historic resource represents to that community, and maybe they want to preserve it. So allow folks the opportunity to come in and say, hey, yeah, I want to take that chair, or I want to take that poster and I want to put it in my house, or I want to put it in a museum. I think we really need to expand the definition of what preservation means. It's not just museums, right? Like, I love hosting people at my house. I love having gatherings. So when people come over, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, this piece of art is from here, or this poster is from here. But yes, working on the 729 Bush project, I really think that was one of my favorite historic preservation topics. And also one of the things that I find myself saying a lot when I work on historic preservation is, just because it's ugly, it doesn't mean it's not historic. Because, we hear a lot of like, but this is so ugly. And I'm like, I agree. but it's historic. So we still have to figure it out. So yeah, I deeply believe in preserving our history, but allowing it to grow with the needs of the community, and allowing it to adapt to different times and different societies.
Oh my gosh, that's is such an interesting and unique story. And I love that. And I think, that's one of the beauties of CEQA is the public engagement component. And so
Mhm.
when you have, and you would think that the communities that these historic properties or buildings are important to, there's a chance, an opportunity to engage. And when you see these, like you said, maybe more ugly buildings or dilapidated,
Yes.
run down, the people who are invested in the historic relevance or significance of these buildings, you have a chance to work with them and, like you
Mhm.
said, capture and give new life to it. And maybe it's not exactly the same use.
Yes.
Medical building from theater is a little
Yes.
different,
Yes.
but it's there's a way to preserve that and have part of the story and the legacy live on
Mhm.
through a new use, and being able to, whatever that is, the awning, if there's the plaque or a
Yeah.
storyboard in the lobby, there's so many
Mhm.
interesting ways to preserve that history
Yeah, and
while giving it a new life at the same time.
and also expanding your definition of what's important, because maybe that particular use wasn't something that I was aware of, but reading about it and learning about it, it just really gave me a different level of understanding of the struggles that our LGBTQA friends have gone through, and the fact that those struggles are still here today. So being able to honor something that maybe you are not part of, uh, is a deep part for me of working on historic preservation issues, and it's a very important thing for me in terms of learning and expanding, and again bringing that kindness and joy into the work. But yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yay. Well, thank you for sharing that. I love that story and the work you're doing and have done on these types of projects. Um, so another question, this is shifting a little bit, but you've spent over a decade involved with APA,
I did.
including serving multiple leadership roles, and in 2025 as a conference co-chair, which I know is no small task.
It was really fun, but definitely exhausting.
Yeah, I can imagine. But yeah. And then, so what is the your long-term commitment to professional organizations?
Thank you, Jessa, for asking that question. And that's actually a question that I've asked myself many times, especially last year, quite a few times as I was trying to organize the Monterey conference, which, by the way, was fantastic and a huge success. And it's something I'm super proud of. I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier about community and redefining what change means, right? A few times doing CEQA, especially as a junior person, when you are not as involved in like decision making and strategizing, which is something I really enjoy, you're doing a lot more writing and it becomes kind of a repetitive task. So I definitely had a few moments where I was like, well, how am I giving back? How am I giving back to communities? How am I giving back to my profession? Am I actually making a difference by just writing ISMNDs? And I didn't feel like I was making enough of a difference to where I felt like a complete person or a complete professional. Making a difference is something that's super important to me. And I think it comes from my family, right? Like moving from Romania to the United States to create more opportunities for my sisters and I. That's what my parents did it, right? My dad being part of the Romanian Revolution in 1989 and going out on the street and fighting for my rights, right? To grow as a free person. So I think that kind of stuff really inspires me, and I want to make sure I stay true to that legacy. So for me, APA is really a way of defining success and defining community and feeling like I'm making a difference. And I think the other thing for me and why I am still very much dedicated to professional organizations is making them more accessible. I think accessibility is such a huge part of it. And staying involved with APA, for me, my main goal is to make sure that there is no entrance fee to knowledge, that there is no entrance fee to understanding what planners do, that if you're a community member and you want to come to our conferences or our events, we make that possible. That if you want to call me up and ask me what environmental planning is, there is going to be somebody that can answer that question for you. So yeah, I think I stayed involved because of this deep sense of needing to give back that's been instilled in me from my family, but also from just the need of wanting to leave the world a better place. And if I can do that through knowledge sharing, through ensuring that systems are accessible, through ensuring that we include more people of different opinions in our processes, then I am dedicated to it, and I will be part of it. However, I want to make sure that what I'm saying is that I will be part of it to bring about change and to be an agent of change. I don't believe in keeping the status quo going just because that's how we've been doing it. That's never been my style. So yeah, making change, redefining community, and accessibility, making planning more accessible to everybody.
Yes. Oh, I love that. It's such an inspiration to think about. Yeah, like have, the challenges that you and your family have overcome and also the successes you've had, and wanting to leverage that into being a change agent is I think really inspiring to me and hopefully to the listeners as well, and being able to pass that along. And thinking about your passion for leadership and mentorship and your approach to this, when you look at the next generation of environmental planners, what excites you the most? And also, where do you think there are gaps that we have in training for the next generation of professionals?
So I think what excites me the most, and something that I learn every day from, I work with junior staff that are, fresh out of college, 20-some-year-olds, is they bring their authentic self to work. And I love that. Yes, maybe sometimes you're going to sit there and scratch your head and be like, really? Like, did you just tell me you're having a bad day because your nail broke? But then if you put that aside, you're like, oh my God, same. I am also having a bad day because my nail broke. Like, I think that the fact that they bring their authentic self to the job and to their everyday interaction is an inspiration. The other thing that inspires me about the new generation of planners is boundaries. I work with folks that have very strong boundaries about, hey, these are my 40 hours and now I'm going to go play. My job is here to pay for my, for the things that I love. And for some of us, the things that I love are our jobs and volunteering with APA and volunteering with AP, and for others, they're not. And it's okay, making all of that okay and acceptable. I think in terms of gaps, I really want the folks that are in my position, right? The mid-career professionals who are training the junior professionals. I really want us to make space for kindness. I want us to make space for joy. And I want us to make space for being authentically ourselves in our jobs, because I really think that that's going to bring the kind of levity that we need in order to be able to go talk to the community authentically, to talk to our clients and give them the advice that they perhaps need, maybe not always want, right? So I'm hoping that that folks that are in my position to grow our next leaders are going to encourage them to continue to keep being authentic, and bring that to our jobs, because I'm not a consultant, I'm a human being. And leading with that is, I think, the change that maybe not just our profession needs, but maybe our system as a whole, right? We are human beings, and what happens in my personal life was going to impact how I behave at work the next day. And what happens in the world is going to impact my presence and my ability to be present, right? And to give myself to my profession. So I would hope that we maintain and encourage people to be authentically themselves, and that kindness and joy really do become central to our profession. That's really my hope.
I love this. I have so many takeaways from this, and I really resonate with your approach and appreciate it. And how lucky are the people that you work with to have someone like you as a leader, as a colleague,
and I feel very lucky to work with them. So,
yes.
Yeah.
And I think, a few things stuck out to me is what you're saying is the human aspect of the work. And I think now more than ever with the technological advances that I'm sure everyone is seeing that's faster than most of us can keep up with, the human component, we still need that. And it's still there. And it's so important to, I think, bring that part of ourselves into the work that we're all doing in whatever way that means. And something else that you were saying is that really resonated with me is kind of mentoring the mentors, leading the next leaders. And I've seen this, I've experienced this, and I've seen this so many times where there's someone moves into a management quote position. They're officially a manager, officially responsible, and, or they have a title where other people are looking to them for leadership and guidance. And my perspective of this has been where people are like, okay, I'm a manager now. I need to have all the answers and I need to know how to do everything, and very buttoned up. And
what a silly burden to place on yourself.
I know. And that was me too. I'm like, okay, well, I'm the boss now. I got to do all these things. And from when I was a very first manager to where I'm at now is leaps and bounds. And I see other people going through that. So I think having strong leaders and mentors to be like, it's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay to let them see you have a bad day. It's okay to show a part of yourself as a human to the people you're managing, because they're also humans. And that vulnerability can create trust. And I feel like it's hard sometimes when you're new to that to be able to show that side of yourself.
I think first and foremost, we're human beings. Second, we're maybe professionals, if that's even how you define myself. For me, is I'm a human being first, then I'm a friend, I'm a daughter, I'm an artist, I'm an environmental professional, I'm an environmental steward. But for me, throughout all of this, I'm a leader. And I'm kind, and I am joyful, and I'm authentic. I want to make a plug.
Doing this all while being royalty too.
I mean, it's really hard,
right?
I have
such a down-to-earth monarch.
I mean, we are an open monarchy here. No kings, though, only queens allowed, because we have to create a safe space for queens. But I have really good court gestures and plenty of entertainment to keep me going. So it's all good. I wanted to make a plug though for the California Planning Roundtable Leadership Academy. I was a alumni of it. I participated in about 4 years ago. And it was actually a really good time for me because I was working in government and I was kind of struggling. I was starting to see that it doesn't quite fit my personality or my idea of myself. It's really hard to leave a good job, right? Especially if it's a good job on paper. So the Leadership Academy helped me ask these questions of myself that I don't think I would have ever asked otherwise. And fundamentally kind of helped me learn me. And you need that as a leader, right? Like you need to know what you're willing to do, how you're willing to do it. And then for the past 3 years, I've had the opportunity to be a mentor in the Leadership Academy and really propagate this idea of humanity and kindness. And one of the philosophies, and this is something that I actually just learned this January from Al Zelinka, who's amazing. He said something very deep, which was delegating for tasks versus delegating for growth. And I started noticing the way I delegate and thinking more about delegating for growth to be able to help people grow as leaders, as professionals, as technical writers, as thinkers, as translators of CEQA, because that's so important, versus just delegating to keep them busy, right? So as a leader, I think sometimes we get caught up in the busyness of everyday life and in the I can just do it myself attitude. But I think that's where we go wrong, because you should never be too busy to allow people to be human beings. And you should never be too busy to help people grow and to help people learn. If you find yourself being too busy, then you need to take stuff off your plate, and you need to make space for all that, because in my opinion, that's where you're going to go in the wrong direction. If you're
gosh.
starting to think of like, I'll just get it done, or I'm too busy to delegate. Delegating is an art.
It really is. And I love that quote that you shared, that delegating tasks versus delegating for growth, because that's so succinct, but also such a big transition for some people to think about that. And I love that. Thanks for sharing. And I think too, when you're talking about like, that's the training the next generation of leaders is the art of delegation. And I think some people in those positions I have seen where they become so busy and overwhelmed, but have not had a chance to hone that art because they're still new to be in a position to delegate, tasks versus delegate growth. And so presenting it to them from that mindset, and something that I've always tried to instill in people that when I'm leading new managers, new leaders, is to be like, you need to create opportunities for the people below you. So yes, while you're busy, it might take some time to train them. They might do it differently than you.
Make space for that.
Exactly. You got this chance. Exactly. And so I've heard something where it's like a sign of successful leadership is leaders who work for you, like becoming leaders, like them elevating up in their career. And so anytime I've seen that, it's like, I take so much personal pride in it.
Same.
I'm like, you did it. Yeah,
I know.
So proud of you. And it's it's so rewarding.
Yeah. I also think, leadership, and to go back to what you were saying earlier, Jessa, where like you started being a leader and you were feeling like all the pressure to have all the answers. There's really a powerful message in saying, I don't know, or in saying, hey, what do you think? Again, we are here to grow people. We're not here to be monarchs. I may be a queen, but I am a Democrat. I'm actually a socialist, but like we are here to grow. So like there are times where maybe I am too, I do have projects. I'm too busy to delegate. So then I ping my junior staff and I say, hey, I don't have the time to pay attention to this week. Please let me know what you think we should be moving forward, so we can keep this going without my input. The idea is that you are training these people to where you're not that needed. Like, I don't want to be needed when I'm on vacation. I don't want to be needed. I want to be wanted, and I want to be valued, and I want to be respected and trusted. But I want people to feel empowered to make decisions and to move things forward, especially if I taught them the right way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I could talk to you all day about so many things. And I'd love to talk to you again soon.
Yes.
Well, before we wrap up, are you going to be at the AEP conference this year in San Diego?
Yes. Yay. I'm presenting on a few panels, and then I'm also going to MC the awards again.
Yes. For those of you who may have missed that last year, it was definitely a highlight of the conference. And those of you who are able to attend know what I'm talking about. So hopefully, so look for Florentina again this year when you're there. And we'll get into the wrap up rapid five.
Oh, yes.
What is your favorite daily habit?
Cuddling my dogs and spoiling them and kissing them and loving them and telling them every day that they are loved, they are wanted, and they are needed, and repeating that to myself.
That's making notes of that. 3 things you'd bring to a deserted island.
So I thought about this, and I love what I'm going to bring to a deserted island. Okay, I'm going to bring a solar panel, a generator, and a fridge, because then I can hunt and grow and store food, right? Like that's actually, if you think over time, one of the biggest revolutions in humanity has been refrigeration. Not only did it transform the way we eat and the way we grow, but it transformed transportation. It transformed societies. So I would bring a solar panel, a generator, and a fridge. And then in the fridge, I would bring my Kindle that has all of the books uploaded because obviously you need a good read.
You're, oh my gosh, what's the word I'm thinking of? Like smuggling in.
Yes. Oh,
your 3 items.
Jessica, I'm an Eastern European. Okay. That's just part of my culture. I would be kicked out of the culture if I didn't smuggle something in.
I also have spoken like a true planner too.
I know.
Like thinking about the whole, you're like, well, I love it.
I literally
really bringing yourself into those 3 plus a few smuggled items.
Because I was like, do I want to bring my phone or do I want to bring a refrigerator? And I was like, well, what's the point of a phone? I want to have signal, but at least the refrigerator, I'll have food.
There you go. I like it. I love the planning that went into that. What's your favorite environmental policy?
So I thought about this a lot, and I really do think it's the Endangered Species Act. I really think that kind of understanding the intertwinedness of the fact that we wouldn't be human beings without species, without, vegetation and birds and bees and all that stuff. So I think that is my favorite, and one of the things that I take very seriously in my profession, protecting endangered or regular species.
Yay.
Yeah.
Well, then to that note, what's your favorite flora or fauna?
California poppies are my absolute favorite. I have a tattoo of it. Dahlias are a second close. I have a tattoo of a dahlia. So my favorite flora is definitely flowers.
So when you say favorite, you mean favorite if it's permanently inked on you.
Literally permanently inked on you. And then my favorite animal is penguins. I always said that I'm waiting for my penguin, and I found him in my husband, Sean. But I love their resiliency, their commitment to their family. And I mean, they're just so cute. So yeah.
Yes.
Poppies and penguins.
And then finish this sentence. Wouldn't it be cool if?
So Jessa, this definitely gave me a lot of pause, and I have been thinking about it like literally every day because I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to say? And I was like, do I go cheesy with like, wouldn't it be cool if like there's peace on earth, or if everybody had $1 million, which I will take if anybody wants to give me $1 million, I am available. But I really thought about, wouldn't it be cool if there's just more kindness in the world? Acceptance. Let's just be kind. Let's make space for others. Let's understand that we all have our own piece of, like, our hearts are our own hearts, and we don't know what's happening in that heart. And make space and hold space. And one of the promises I made myself when I was in grad school, I was going through a little bit of a hard time. And I made my promise that I am always going to have a smile in my heart, even if maybe it's not on my face. So when I have a hard day or a tough time, I remind myself that there's a smile in my heart. And I remind myself that there's kindness around me, even if maybe it's not in that moment. So wouldn't it be cool if there's more kindness in the world?
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing. You've lifted my spirits. I didn't even know they needed to be lifted, but they are lifted.
Yay,
and it was such a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing and joining us today.
Thank you, Jessa. It's been a pleasure and definitely an honor.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to be updated when new episodes are released, and leave us a review to let us know what you think. It also really helps us to share the podcast with others who may enjoy learning about the environmental industry. If you want to submit a shout out or any feedback, please send an email or voice memo to podcast@califaep.org. The email again is podcast with an S, podcast@califaep.org.